authentic and natural English.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Fluency Talks for this week. I apologize, I'm recovering from a cold, so if my voice is not the usual resonance, beautiful voice that you're used to, my apologies, but let's get started. You know what? This week, I decided just to go around and take a look at the different types of tools that are available nowadays for people to learn English. And there was one of them that really stood out, but not for the best reasons. And in this case, I'm talking about artificial intelligence tutors. Now, artificial intelligence tutors, they will not make you fluent, but it's going to feel that they make you fluent. Now, how is it that this happens? Why is it that this is not necessarily the most effective approach? Let's talk about this today. So, AI tutors, they when you take a look at the proposal, it looks very appealing, right? It's a conversation partner that you're going to have available for 24 hours a day. You can choose the topic that you want to talk about. You can. I watched one video that there was someone that they were speaking a sentence. So they were saying this sentence in English, and then some of these words in the middle of the sentence they didn't know in English, so they translated. So they used the word in Portuguese. Um, and the artificial intelligence recognized it, for example, so they actually they code switched inside the sentence and then while using the app. So it feels like there's no judgment whenever you're practicing speaking. There's no embarrassment. It just feels like constant English practice. And when people use these tools, every time that I see people having experience with these tools, they always get this feeling of like, oh, I'm learning so fast. This is so effective. But the feeling that this might be actually like this feeling that we have that we are learning, that we're doing so much, might be one of the biggest illusions that we have in modern language teaching and learning. So, an illusion is something really the word that we're going to use here, because while while I was watching all of these videos and all of that, I noticed what we are going to call this video the three main illusions that artificial intelligent tutors create: the illusion of learning, the illusion of comfort, and the illusion of connection. So let's start with the first one, the illusion of learning. So when we think about AI tutors, a lot of the videos that I've watched so far, there's a lot of, for example, I would say something, some kind of feedback would come back, mentioning some topics related to my pronunciation, grammar, and things like that. I'm thinking about like doing my own videos using those to demonstrate why I find that they are not so effective. So if you're interested in that, please just send me, publish a comment here, and I'll be able to create some of those videos. But a lot of the times there are two things that the AI tutors will do. First, there's always going to be kind of an immediate translation from English to your first language, which basically promotes code switching on the fly, which technically speaking, when you are fluent, when you're living in an English speaking environment, you very rarely code switch as much. And code switching like this, like working with two different languages at the same time, requires a lot of practice, in a way that you are able to work with both languages independently and then switch from one to the other. What I see this part of AI tutors and the fact that they have so much, it's basically training us to become this automatic translation machine that it may gives us that idea that we are learning. Or for example, when an AI tutor, if I send some kind of a sentence and there are some mistakes, and the response that I get from the AI tutor is basically word by word what I have to say, what I should have said. Like those two types of situations, code switching and then just giving you exactly what was the right thing to say. Those things are sometimes like they promote this aha moments. The moment that kind of that immediate satisfaction that you can get maybe from a social media like, for example. So that type of feeling really gets us pretty much addicted to that sensation, and it makes us feel that we are learning. So you type something, the artificial intelligence corrects it, it shows you a better version, and it suggests the perfect sentence. So when you read it, you experience that, like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's what I had to say. And that feels like learning. But what you experienced was recognition. It wasn't really learning. Real learning requires something that is called retrieval. Basically, your brain has to search for those words. Your brain has to organize the sentence. You have to test the idea in real time. That process is slow, and it cannot just be mirrored by you taking a look at the artificial intelligence and repeating it to yourself. Sometimes, actually like most of the times, the process is frustrating because you are creating different neural pathways and you're teaching your brain how to work in a different way. So frustration is absolutely normal. Sometimes it is awkward. So these types of somewhat negative sensations, they're the ones that we need to expect to feel when when our brains are building new language pathways. So when artificial intelligence gives you the answer immediately, you skip the cognitive processing development. It skip the process that is so important for learning. So you recognize the correct sentence, but you didn't build it yourself. So you won't be able to replicate this process if you are in a situation of communication with someone. So your brain experiences the feeling of learning without building the structure that is required for fluency. So that is the first illusion that AI tutors will create in learners, the illusion of learning. So let's go to the second one. The second illusion is the illusion of comfort. So AI tutors create an environment where everything feels safe. You decide what you want to talk about. The mistakes that are made are very specific to what you want. You can pause whenever you want. You make mistakes and you never feel embarrassed because there's not a person that is connected to the other side of what you're saying. And then this artificial intelligence tools, they're going to use a language that guides you step by step. And at first glance, it seems ideal. But language acquisition does not happen in the comfort zone. It's almost like the same thing when I see a lot of learners, they spend a lot of their time watching videos about learning English. Videos that say, oh, why is it that you're not going to become a fluent English speaker? And never really moving away from that particular type of topic, and always keeps in this loop that becomes almost an affirmation loop that doesn't really expand into fluency. So when you speak with a real person, your brain is doing many different things at the same time. You are listening to different sounds, you are processing information, you are interpreting meaning, you're organizing your thoughts, producing that language, and responding before the conversation moves on. So there's so many things that happen while you are in a conversation, and very rarely they're just going to happen how you expect. So putting yourself into the position that the tool that you're using is basically built to reinforce your own patterns, that is not going to help your brain develop your cognitive skills or your ability to process language. The idea of to think on your feet, in one of the videos that I'm going to be creating in the future, the fact that you are processing information in real time and responding to it appropriately and accurately, this is something that's type of pressure that is something that we must train our brains to do, because that is what makes our brain think faster, adapt. So it basically helps you build automatic language patterns. But the moment that you remove any kind of discomfort, any kind of type of information that you're not familiar with, that pretty much, and this is what AI tutors will do, they will remove the pressure from the learner. And when that pressure disappears, the growth slows down dramatically. So it's almost like that saying, right? Pressure creates diamonds. So learning a language requires cognitive friction, requires some level of difficulty, some uncertainty, moments where you don't know exactly what to say. In AI, is basically designed to remove that type of friction. But that friction is exactly where learning happens. So basically, that's the second illusion, the illusion of comfort, because comfort is going to basically keep us in that kind of forever loop of doing the same thing. And when you go to any other type of communication situation, you're not going to be able to say anything. You're going to freeze because most of the time you just spent reinforcing things that you had, that basically that you were used to before. So that's our second illusion, the illusion of comfort. And now the third one. The third illusion is the illusion of connection. Artificial intelligence tutors are designed to sound supportive and encouraging. A lot of times they are not going to provide accurate corrections to students and to learners, also because it's designed to identify and to be very forgiving of different mistakes. It's able to identify many different types of variations when people are speaking. I have seen this many times where someone is like they're doing a demonstration on YouTube of artificial intelligence tutors, and they say something, and the feedback that they got is that like it was 96% correct, and it wasn't. There were definitely other types of components of pronunciation that weren't addressed, but the artificial intelligence were basically, that tool was able to identify what they were trying to say and provided a very good feedback, saying things like, great job, that's a very natural sentence, you're making excellent progress. That kind of language feels warm. It's almost like you're talking to the very supportive teacher, that like kind of a romanticized version of what a teacher is meant to be doing when it comes to help people with their education. Uh, and that encouragement, that language that artificial intelligence uses, is basically simulated empathy. It's a design feature. The artificial intelligence is programmed to sound encouraging because it keeps people engaged. But real communication is also very different. Real conversations will include misunderstandings, different tone, emotion, moments where someone doesn't fully understand what you meant, moments where you have to clarify your idea. So those situations, they can be very uncomfortable. However, we talked about comfort before. Those moments are important for us to build long-lasting fluency. They are essential for building real communication skills. Artificial intelligence creates the feeling of connection without the unpredictability of real human interaction. And one thing that is super interesting nowadays that I notice is that more than 2,000 years ago, the philosopher Plato described something that is very similar. I also recommend listening to the song The Cave by Mumford and Sons. So, in the Allegory of the Cave, you have prisoners and they are chained inside a cave and they are watching shadows being projected on a wall. Shadows are all that they know. So they believe that the shadows are reality. But the shadows that they see, they're only reflections, not the real world. Artificial intelligence language learning can create something very similar to that. It shows learners the shadow of fluency, but not fluency itself. And because those shadows look convincing, many people feel like they are making progress, even if their ability to communicate in real conversations hasn't changed very much. And don't get me wrong, artificial intelligence can be a very powerful tool. I'm not against artificial intelligence. There's no being against artificial intelligence. The reality is here. However, your English fluency and fluency in any language does not come from tools. Fluency comes from thinking in the language, from struggling to express ideas, trying and trying again until you feel like you have managed to reach that particular spot in communication where you want to be. From communicating with real people, engaging in conversation. And that process is not always comfortable. But that discomfort is exactly where language acquisition lives. And no algorithm and no artificial intelligence can replace that. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about the tools that you use. I understand that there are components that are related to pricing that people take into account when they talk about how they are going to improve their English skills. However, my biggest concern with the idea nowadays of artificial intelligence tutors is that you're going to spend, I don't know, maybe 1 year going through this process, maybe preparing yourself for a trip in an English speaking country. And then when you get to the place, you're going to freeze. And you are only going to realize that that tool that you had been investing your money, investing your time on, it didn't work. You're only going to realize that 1 year ahead, 2 years ahead, when you're actually putting your fluency to practice in a very, let's say, very real situation, real world situation when you are in an English speaking country. And don't get me wrong, a lot of people say, you know why you're only saying that because you're a teacher and you want everybody to go study with you. I cannot be everybody's teacher. There's definitely like, I believe that you should find someone that you believe you're going to have a good relationship with, that you will be able to trust that person when it comes to providing you the best feedback, providing you the knowledge that is relevant when it comes to fluency. But and this is the first video that I do about the tools that people have been using a lot more recently. So this one very specific to artificial intelligence tutors. I know that at, first glance, it might seem perfect, but also too good to be true. Cheaper than any type of class, available 24 hours a day, practical, dynamic, all of those buzzwords in marketing. So this video is not to say artificial intelligence is not a good tool for English fluency. What I'm saying is that what I see in the market right now, I thought, in many different areas this is happening, that you see that you'd expect artificial intelligence to be used for the good of an industry. But I think before we get to how artificial intelligence can really help with people acquiring English fluency, before that happens, you basically have the use of artificial intelligence to create something that is somewhat low effort to you, the learner, and is going to simulate that idea of learning. Again, take a look. I do have my own platform. I use artificial intelligence to help me with different types of tasks. Again, I'm not against artificial intelligence, but how it is basically third-partying the thoughts and the cognitive development that is important and super relevant for learners, that's the part that concerns me nowadays. Again, you don't have to go into second nature English and take a look at the Think in English program if that's something that you don't believe it's going to work for you. However, before you jump into these artificial intelligence tutors, I do recommend searching for a teacher, an instructor that you believe that you are able to trust to collect information, so the process of developing fluency keeps and pretty much stays human. Thank you everybody for watching for the fluency talks of this week. And we say that artificial intelligence tutors won't make you fluent, but it feels like they will. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.